There's a moment she never saw coming, a moment that creeps in late at night in silence, in solitude, when the world slows down and her distractions can't drown out the truth. And in that moment she feels it, that deep sinking feeling that she let something rare slip through her fingers. But here's the thing. It's not your absence that haunts her. It's the man you became in it. The man who didn't beg, who didn't break, who didn't orbit around her emotions trying to prove his worth. You walked away with purpose. You embraced the space. And in doing so, you didn't just disappear. You elevated. This video is about that moment, the one where she realizes the man she left behind has become the man she now longs for. And ironically, it's the same moment she realizes you no longer need her to see it. So if you've ever wondered, when that turning point happens, when she starts to wish she never let you go, this is it. Let's break it. The echo of your absence down. Number 1, the echo of your absence. She doesn't hear from you anymore. Not a text, not a call. And that silence, once something she took for granted, now echoes louder than any words. A Stoic man understands true strength often speaks loudest in stillness. You see, you're no longer in her daily notifications, yet somehow your presence lingers more powerfully than ever. That's because you stopped filling the silence with explanations. You stopped reaching for validation. Instead, you let your absence carry the message your words no longer needed to say. And here's what she starts to realize. This isn't just silence. This is intention. This is you choosing peace over performance. She scrolls through old messages thinking maybe she missed a sign, a moment, a warning. But the truth is you simply outgrew the noise. You're not punishing her, you're protecting yourself. Like Marcus Aurelius said, nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul. You've returned to that place. And because of that, the contrast between your calm withdrawal and the chaos of others becomes unmistakable. She begins to feel the emptiness, not because you disappeared, but because you stopped trying to be understood. You're left no drama, no trail of bitterness, just the weight of everything unspoken. That's what makes it echo. Because what you once gave freely, your attention, your time, your care, wasn't replaced by anger. It was replaced by clarity. And now every quiet moment reminds her you were never just a man in her life. You were a presence, one that didn't beg to be remembered, but became unforgettable, precisely because you walked away with grace. And that, my friend, is what a Stoic man masters. Not the art of noise, but the art of leaving behind a silence that speaks for itself. Before we move on, take a second to really sit with that thought. The silence you left wasn't empty, it was full of meaning. Sometimes the loudest impact we make is when we no longer try to be heard. And if that resonates with you, if you've ever walked away, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, then you understand the quiet power we're talking about. I'd love to hear your perspective. Drop a comment below and share your experience. Or just leave this in the comments. My silence isn't emptiness, it's strength. Let's keep the conversation going. Number 2, her world is louder, but her world is louder but colder, colder. She's surrounded by noise, parties post new faces, but none of it brings her peace. She begins to feel the weight of what she gave up. A man who brought clarity, not chaos. Now everything around her seems louder. Constant notifications, endless social invites, distractions dressed as happiness. But behind all of it, there's a growing emptiness, because deep down she knows that none of these people truly see her. They entertain her, they validate her, but they don't anchor her. Not the way you did. You weren't always the loudest in the room, but you were always the most grounded. When life got chaotic, you didn't flinch. When she was spinning emotionally, you didn't add to the noise. You became the calm. You didn't lecture her. You didn't control her. You simply lived in alignment with your values. Your steadiness was the warmth she didn't know she'd miss until she stepped into a colder world. And now she's realizing the volume went up, but the meaning went down. That silent strength of yours, it wasn't boring. It was rare. It made her feel safe, held, understood. That kind of presence doesn't scream. It lingers. A stoic man doesn't fight to be remembered. He simply is unforgettable because he gave peace where others gave performance. Let her chase the volume if she must. You, on the other hand, stay rooted in stillness, because in the end, it's not the loud world that wins. It's the man who never had to raise his voice to be felt. Number 3, when her validation no longer moves, you longer moves you. She expected you to check her stories, like her posts respond when she reached out. That used to work, didn't it? A glance from her, a message, a heart on your post. It gave you that temporary high. It kept you in her orbit, chasing moments that felt like approval. But not anymore. You've elevated past that. What used to shake you now barely gets a blink. Not because you've grown cold, but because you've grown strong. Your detachment isn't bitterness, it's freedom. The kind of freedom that comes when you no longer need to be seen to feel secure. Epictetus would call it inner mastery. A deep, unshakable calm that doesn't rise or fall with someone else's recognition. She might still try to test the waters. A story designed to spark your curiosity. A subtle post she hopes you'll react to. But when you don't move, when you remain composed and unmoved, it shifts something. See, when a man stops needing a woman's validation, it's not just a sign that he's healed, it's a sign that he's awakened. You've started living for something higher than her approval. Your peace, your purpose, your path. You realize that real power isn't in being noticed, it's in being centered. There's a quiet kind of strength in no longer reacting. And that silence, that calm indifference doesn't just confuse her, it reveals your growth. She used to know exactly what buttons to press, but now those buttons are gone, replaced with standards, with focus, with presence. And here's the truth. Most won't say when she senses that her validation no longer moves you. That's when she starts wondering why her power faded, why your attention vanished, why your energy feels so far away now. That mystery, that shift is louder than any message you could send. A stoic man doesn't seek validation. He lives in a way that makes it irrelevant. You've become that man. And once you taste that level of peace, no Instagram story, no late-night text, no flash of affection can pull you back into who you used to be. Number 4. The memory that doesn't. The memory that doesn't fade. She thought you'd be a phase, someone she'd outgrow. Instead, your presence became a standard. A man who walked with calm purpose, whose energy left fingerprints on her mind. You became unforgettable, not through effort, but alignment. And that's what she didn't anticipate. She may have assumed you'd fade into the background like others before you. But there's something different about a man who doesn't chase validation. A man who isn't loud, yet somehow commands the deepest kind of attention. You didn't try to win her over with grand gestures or empty words. You didn't perform. You just were centered, steady, present. You see, what lingers isn't always the loudest voice or the flashiest moment. It's the quiet consistency of someone who knew exactly who he was. That's what Stoicism teaches us. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." And you live that. While others reacted, you responded. While others pushed for attention, you stayed anchored. That's what left a mark. Think about the quiet confidence you brought into her life. The way you listened, the way you didn't need to dominate a room to be felt. That memory isn't tied to a specific event, it's tied to a feeling of calm in your presence, a feeling of safety that she didn't fully appreciate until it was gone. Now, as the noise of her world continues, New faces, fleeting connections, shallow conversations. There's a part of her that drifts back to you. Not because you were perfect, but because you were rare. You didn't become unforgettable by trying to be. You simply lived in integrity. And that kind of man is not easily replaced. And here's the truth. A Stoic man doesn't aim to be remembered. He simply lives by principle. But ironically, that's what makes him unforgettable. Because when you leave people better than you found them, when your energy brings more peace than pressure, your absence becomes just as powerful as your presence. She may not say it out loud, she might even pretend like she's moved on, but somewhere in the quiet, when everything else fades, there you are. Not as a fantasy, but as a mirror of what real connection once felt like. That's the memory that doesn't fade. And that's where I want you to pause for a moment. Not to dwell on the past, but to recognize the weight of your presence then and now. Because whether she admits it or not, your calm strength left an imprint. And that says something about the kind of man you've become. So I want to hear from you. What part of this message resonated the most with you? Drop your thoughts in the comments, or simply write, "My energy is felt even in silence." Let's reflect together, because every man who chooses peace over performance is already walking a path few dare to take. Number 5, her new options fall short. She thought moving on would feel. Her new options fall short like an upgrade, but now she sees others. Maybe fun, but they don't challenge her. They don't lead, they don't center her like you did. A Stoic man doesn't entertain chaos. He grounds those around him, and she's starting to feel the absence of that grounding more than she expected. The guy she meets now might flood her with attention, fill her, phone with compliments, and try to sweep her off her feet, but none of it holds weight because deep down she misses the kind of presence that didn't need to be loud to be powerful. You didn't try to impress her every second, you didn't constantly chase. Instead, you made her feel something rare, safe yet inspired. You challenged her to rise without ever needing to control her. You listened with intention, led with calm strength, and made decisions from principle, not impulse. That's what she can't replicate because most men react, they don't respond. They seek approval, they don't stand rooted in who they are. Now in quiet moments she compares. Maybe not out loud, maybe not even consciously, but there's a growing contrast between what she had and what she has now. It's like the difference between being excited and being fulfilled, between noise and peace. She's surrounded by options, yet emotionally underwhelmed. Why? Because the fun fades, the charm wears off, but the memory of being seen, led and truly felt by a man of depth that lingers. Epictetus once said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." And that's the shift happening inside her. Her old opinion was that she could find better. Now she's beginning to understand. Better isn't louder, richer, or more exciting. Better is rarer. Better is steady. Better is you. Let her chase novelty. Let her explore. A Stoic man doesn't compete for attention. He lets time reveal value. And eventually, she realizes the new options weren't upgrades. They were distractions from what she wasn't ready to fully appreciate. Number 6. Your growth becomes undeniable. While she looked outward, you looked inward, and it shows new strength, new clarity. She sees the difference even from afar. And now the man she let go has become the man she would chase. But it's too late. You're not chasing anyone. You've outgrown the need for external validation. What once may have shaken you, her silence, her indifference, her absence no longer holds weight in your world. You're not bitter. You're just better. Growth isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like waking up with purpose, not confusion. Sometimes it's the quiet refusal to beg for energy that isn't being offered. And sometimes it's choosing peace over performance, knowing that what you build within will eventually radiate without. She can feel that now. You used to show up to be seen. Now you show up because you see yourself clearly. A Stoic man doesn't shout his evolution. He lives it. And that's exactly what you did. You stopped trying to be enough for someone who couldn't see your worth, and you focused on becoming enough for the life you truly want. You built discipline, emotional control, purpose. You learned to be still without being stagnant. Now she scrolls through your updates, hears about your wins, senses your shift, and it stirs something in her. Not because you're playing a game, but because your transformation is real, tangible, unmistakable. She let go of one version of you, but she never expected this version to emerge. You're no longer a chapter in her story. You've become your own book written with intention, bound by discipline, and authored by someone who no longer seeks to be chosen, but chooses himself. And that, my friend, is a kind of growth no one can ignore. Number 7, she remembers your emotional discipline. Emotional discipline. Most men reacted, you responded, you didn't explode when provoked, you didn't beg when dismissed. Your restraint wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. As Seneca put it, no man is free who is not master of himself, and you were. While others let their emotions run wild, you stood anchored calm in the face of disrespect, composed in moments that would have broken lesser men. And she noticed. At first, maybe she mistook it for coldness. Maybe she thought you didn't care. But with time, she started to understand. It wasn't that you lacked emotion, it's that you had control over it. While she tested your patience, pushed your buttons, or played games to stir a reaction, you didn't take the bait. You chose peace over pride, clarity over chaos. That kind of man doesn't shout to prove his strength. He shows it through stillness. Now, in contrast to the emotionally impulsive men who came after you, she sees the difference. They overreact, they try to impress, they spiral the moment they feel unheard. But you remained grounded like a stoic walking through a storm without flinching. Even in conflict, you didn't fold, you didn't fight for validation. You paused, breathed, and let your values guide your response, not your ego. And that memory stays with her, because emotional discipline isn't common and it's unforgettable. She remembers how you didn't let the moment control you. She remembers how you made her feel safe, not smothered. How your silence sometimes said more than loud arguments ever could. In a world full of noise, you became the calm she didn't know she'd miss. That kind of presence leaves a mark. And not just any mark, but one that lingers, in her quiet moments of reflection. When the chaos fades, when the excitement of drama wears off, it's the man who stayed composed that her mind returns to. That's the power of a disciplined heart. It doesn't just influence the moment, it shapes the memory. So before we move to the next point, take a second to reflect. Have you ever noticed how emotional control changes the entire dynamic? Drop your thoughts in the comments or just type, "Stillness is strength," if you've ever seen how silence and restraint speak louder than words. Number 8, when she realizes you were. When she realizes you were a mirror. She didn't just lose you, she lost the version of herself she was becoming around you. You didn't try to fix her. You inspired her. That's what a Stoic man does. He becomes a quiet example, not a noisy savior. You weren't in her life to control her growth. You simply reflected the parts of her that were rising, evolving and striving to meet your calm presence, while others made her feel like she had to change to be accepted. You made her feel safe enough to grow without pressure. That's a rare thing. Think about it. In your presence, she started to think differently. She began to speak with more clarity, move with more intention. It wasn't magic, it was alignment, because you weren't reactive. You didn't let chaos dictate your peace. You held your center, and that energy showed her what stability looked like. And for a moment she mirrored it. She started to become a version of herself that she admired, because it was shaped by the example you lived, not the expectations you imposed. But now that you're gone, that mirror is gone too. And she feels it not just in her routines, but in her self-image. She remembers how she felt more focused, more disciplined, more feminine, even simply by being near a man who embodied purpose without preaching. A man who, like Marcus Aurelius said, wastes no time arguing what a good man should be. He just is. You were that mirror, not by pointing fingers, but by holding your own standard so consistently that she began to rise just to meet it. And here's the part that hits her the most. You never asked her to be anything. You never demanded change. You just walked your path with self-respect. And in doing so, you gave her a glimpse of who she could be, if she did the same, when she remembers you now. It's not just with longing. It's with a deep, aching realization that you didn't just reflect her. You revealed her. Your boundaries now make sense. Potential. Number 9, your boundaries now make sense. Back then, she might have seen your standards as cold or inflexible. Now she understands they weren't walls to keep her out. They were doors she didn't have the courage to walk through. A man who guards his peace doesn't do so out of fear but wisdom. And now, with time and distance, she's beginning to see the difference between a man who controls others and a man who controls himself. You never raised your voice. You didn't play emotional tug-of-war. You simply drew a line, a quiet line, and stood behind it. And while she once interpreted that stillness as distance today, it registers as strength. Because when you refused to chase after her mood swings, when you chose silence over unnecessary drama, when you calmly removed yourself from situations that disrespected your values, it wasn't rejection, it was self-respect. She remembers the moments now, the way you would leave a conversation if it turned toxic, the way you wouldn't compete for her attention, the way you didn't bend just to keep the peace. At the time, she may have labelled it arrogance, but now it reads as clarity. She realises you weren't playing hard to get. You were being hard to shake. A stoic man doesn't build his life on someone else's validation. He builds it on virtue, on discipline, truth, and peace of mind. Like Marcus Aurelius said, just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. And that's exactly what you did. You didn't fight to be understood. You chose to be aligned. And now that she's lived a little more, tasted what it's like to be around men with no direction, no backbone, and no standards. Your boundaries finally make sense. They weren't the reason you lost her. They were the reason you didn't lose yourself. And in the end, that's what she respects. Regret wakes her up at night most. Number 10. Regret wakes her up at night. It hits her in the quiet moments. The what if, the if only. She begins to wish she had seen your value before she lost it. The same man she once thought would always be around, always understanding, always waiting now, walks forward with silent conviction. And that stings more than any words you could have said because you're not bitter. You're not lashing out, you're just gone. Not in a dramatic way, but in a disciplined way. A stoic man doesn't seek revenge. He seeks peace. He lets life teach the lessons he no longer has the energy to repeat. You see at night, when the distractions quiet down, when the noise of her new life fades. Your absence becomes deafening. Maybe it's a song that reminds her of you. Maybe it's seeing your name, but knowing she can't just reach out anymore. Or maybe it's that familiar ache in her chest when she realises that the stability you brought wasn't common. It was rare, and she let it go. Not because you weren't enough, but because she wasn't ready for what you were. But here's the beauty. Her regret is not your responsibility. You're not waiting for her to wake up. You're already wide awake, becoming stronger, more grounded, more fulfilled. You didn't pause your growth waiting for her return. You didn't hold space hoping she'd come back wiser. You moved with purpose. She might wrestle with that regret for a long time. Those late-night thoughts that whisper, You had something real, but that's her inner work to do now. Your only job is to keep showing up for the life you're building, not out of spite, but out of respect for yourself. And that's the quiet power of walking away with dignity. Not to prove a point, but to prove to yourself that you've outgrown what once held you back. Her regret may echo in the silence, but your peace that speaks volumes. So take a moment to reflect. Have you ever been in that place where someone only realized your worth after you were already gone? If so, share your thoughts below or just drop this in the comments. Her regret is not my responsibility. I'd love to hear what this moment meant to you. Let's move. You're unreachable, and that's the lesson forward. Number 11. You're unreachable, and that's the lesson she finally wants you, but you've moved beyond wanting to be wanted. You're not bitter, you're not punishing her, you've simply elevated. And now she watches from a distance, realizing letting you go wasn't just a mistake. It was the moment she lost a man few ever meet twice. She scrolls through old messages, maybe even types something out and deletes it. Because deep down, she knows the man who once waited for her reply, who once checked in to see how she was doing, isn't there anymore. He didn't disappear out of spite. He evolved. You stopped needing the closure, the explanation, or the validation. And that quiet transformation, that's the real lesson. You see, a Stoic man understands that his peace is not a place someone else grants him. It's something he builds within. Like Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. You've embodied that. You stopped orbiting around her moods, her decisions, her half-hearted efforts. And when you did, something shifted. She no longer had access. Not because you blocked her, but because you outgrew the space where she once had power. Think of the difference. Before, your energy chased, seeking connection, hoping to be chosen. Now your energy rests centered, calm, no longer seeking what once drained you. She notices that shift. She notices the silence. Not because you're trying to send a message, but because you no longer feel the need to explain your growth. And that silence speaks volumes. You became unreachable, not by disappearing, but by becoming a man whose value is no longer tied to someone else's recognition. And when a woman senses that, when she feels the absence of your emotional availability, that's when the regret sets in. Not because you tried to make her feel bad, but because your presence was once taken for granted, and now it's gone. So if she ever reaches out again, it won't be to resume what was. It'll be a realization of what she let slip through her fingers. A man who didn't just walk away but rose, and in that rise became unreachable. Not out of pride, but out of purpose. Now she sees it. Not because you tried to make her. Not because you threw conclusion it in her face, but because your silence forced her to hear the truth. She kept running from. You were different. You weren't perfect, but you were grounded, intentional calm in chaos. While she searched for attention, you searched for meaning. While others reacted emotionally, you moved with clarity. And now, in a world filled with noise and ego, your absence feels irreplaceable. That's what happens when a man embraces his higher path. When he trades the need for validation with the strength of inner peace. The Stoic man doesn't cling. He inspires. He doesn't chase. He evolves. And in doing so, he becomes unforgettable. If this message spoke to you, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, or just drop this line to let me know. You felt this shift. She let go, but I rose instead. Don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and check out the other videos on screen. They're designed to help you keep building this version of yourself. Calm, focused, unshakable. Because once you become that man, she doesn't just miss you. She regrets ever thinking you were replaceable.